Good afternoon and welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. This afternoon, I'm very excited to be interviewing Janet Efere.
Hello, really pleased to be here.
Excellent stuff. So hopefully you're going to be learning like tons today because Janet has got a very humble person, but who has got a ton of what and like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to both business, sales, and just mindset, which is something that I really, through our conversations, kind of fell in love with the concept of um, how strong your mindset has been through so many interesting hurdles and challenges through life. And in the times that we're living at the moment, where it's becoming almost old to say unprecedented times, because it's like we've been saying that for months now, and people are going through all kinds of challenges. Many people are getting to that stage now where they're going, I thought this would be over months ago, and hey, it's still here. The whole digital transformation, people adapting, learning new businesses, and all of those things have been what I think is going to capture the world over the next few months. So this interview is really an opportunity to learn a little bit about how you can also go and adapt and survive and take away some really great things about just surviving and but doing it at a really successful level, I believe. Would that be correct to say, Janet?
Yeah, I'm very grateful both for the journey I've been on and because it shaped me. It has shaped me. Without wanting to sound like it's a tragedy, but I've had some really tough times, and it has helped me become the person I am. And although I hope I was always pretty decent, I think it's made me a better person. And you mentioned humble. I absolutely have the ability to put myself in other people's shoes in a way that I never used to have. And I think it's really important. You're spot on. And a lot of people are struggling so much at the moment too. So let's hope, I sound like a Miss World contestant, let's hope the world will be a better place. But I mean, I do hope. I think there's a shift, don't you, in how people behave with one another. I hope so.
I do believe so. I think we've seen a massive shift through the joys of technology, like Zoom and
Yeah.
Creating new connections through various media platforms.
Yeah.
And there's a massive shift for people to want to connect
Yes.
with people, and because of that isolation, there's a desperation in some people.
Yeah.
So before I get into having our conversation, I just want to give people a little bit of a kind of an understanding of who you are. So just a little bit of background, and then I want you to tell us a bit about your story and your journey, if that's okay.
Sure.
So Janet is an award-winning entrepreneur and owner of Tadpole Training. Now, you're going to tell us how that name came about.
I'll tell you how the name came about. Yes.
Good. A sales training company, and she's won Enfield's Startup Business of the Year and a finalist in the Guardian Startup in 2015. So you know how to start up, get business going, and get noticed, which is really important. And with 35 years worth of experience, heavily in demand. So I'm really excited that I squeezed out an hour of your time today. So thank you. And over 10,000 people have completed your training. I mean, that's mad.
Well, when I started going back over 35 years, I mean, I mean, that's not all sales training, it's other stuff too, but it's still a lot of people, isn't it?
And that means you've touched the lives of so many more, because all those people that you've trained have gone on to impact so many more people, which is just beautiful. And then and I didn't really know this, that you've actually written 2 books as well. And one of them is a bestseller on a #1 on Amazon.
Yeah.
So, I want to hear a little bit more about that, but we've got quite a few things to go through today. But I like the headline of what we're going to cover today. And, where you've basically stated, I teach people how to sell without being pushy or yucky. I mean,
oh yes, we
and
do
I
not
just
want
love
yucky,
the
we do not
words.
want pushy.
And in sales, that's like, what do you mean? You're not pushy, or like, even if just saying the word sales for a lot of people has negative connotations.
Yeah.
Yet it's actually every single one of us are a salesperson. We sell ourselves to our partners, our children, our family members. We're selling all the time just to have attention.
Yes.
So anybody who says I hate sales needs to
They
take
got a problem.
hard look. Sales is a survival thing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. We will be sharing some links, up above and down below on in YouTube and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So look out for that. And there'll be an opportunity at the end to find out how you can engage with Janet directly as well, if that's okay with you, Jan.
Of course it is, yeah.
Excellent stuff. So please, if you could just take us through your journey of, so that people can understand why it's so important for me to have you give this message right now of the journey you've been on to, this whole pandemic where everybody thinks this is the challenge.
Yeah.
You've faced several hurdles just to get where you are today. And I have to emphasize this, actually succeed during the pandemic. And if I'm correct, having one of your best years yet.
Yeah, I've had my two of my best months ever in my entire history of my current company, which is 8 years. They happened, I think it was May and June this year, my two best months ever.
So, there's hope for us all.
Oh yeah.
We want to share. So let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this. Yeah, I mean, my background is it's always been sales. I did 7 years at Xerox, and Xerox is a very sales-driven organization. So having come out the other side, people now say to me, "Oh, well, you must have been good if you lasted 7 years." And, I wasn't pushed, I left. But what Xerox taught me was amazing. They invested so much in sales training, and we were always the most expensive. We couldn't give discounts, and we're often competing with people who are half our price. So I had to be good at selling, and I'm so grateful for Xerox. And then I met my future husband, and I left Xerox to work with him in his fledgling college in East London. And over 17 years together, I headed up business development. He was the academic. Together, we grew it from 6 students in like 2 rooms to 650 students in an 11,000 square foot premises near Stepney Green, getting near £3.5 million turnover. And then it all went wrong. It went horribly wrong. I don't know if any of you remember Olympic year, but that was the year the Home Office clamped down on bogus colleges who were pretty much just acting as visa shops for students who came from overseas. Now, we were a proper college. We did everything that we possibly could to be completely correct. But it's true, there were colleges out there that were not following the rules. So overnight, 500 colleges lost their licenses to trade, and we were one of them. And literally the money stopped. Everything stopped. And I feel both for people who are being made redundant now, but also for employers, I had to lay off my team. All of them, horrible. I had to deal with bailiffs. I had to deal with angry parents wanting fees back. There was no money to pay them fees. And that was a really dark time, because in the end, my husband left. He was from Nigeria, so he went back to Nigeria, and all the people that were chasing him for money started to chase me, and I had to go bankrupt. So I had no job, I had no money, no husband. He stopped paying the mortgage. We lost the house, and it was awful. I mean, there's no way of wrapping it up to make it look fluffier than it was. It was a hideous time. And I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll get a job in sales, because it's the quickest way I know to earn money. I didn't want to be the boss. I just wanted a sales job, because that's where you can really earn the money. And to my astonishment, I didn't fit in corporate anymore, and I didn't know it was a thing. And if you'd told me it was a thing, I'd have said, "Don't be silly, Janet, work harder, try harder." But it would appear it was a thing. I was a bit too strategic. So that made me reassess my options. I thought, well, what can I do? I can sell, and I can train, because I've been delivering training in the college. So I thought, I know, I'll be a sales trainer. We used to use sales trainers at Xerox, so it's definitely a job. And what I did was, with no money, but a lot of stuff in here, I just started. And I went to a seminar at Excel just when I was beginning, and there was this guy who's the head of a very successful business now, and he was telling everyone his hard luck story. And his hard luck story, when they were trying to launch this business, they were struggling and they didn't have any money. And he said, it got so bad at one point, I nearly missed a mortgage payment. And I'm sitting there, I'm bankrupt, my husband's left me, I'm homeless, I've got no job. And I just thought, yeah, you haven't really got an idea of what some of us are facing. So literally what I did was, I got my tatty old laptop, couldn't afford internet at the time at home. And I used to go to the McDonald's on the A10 in Cambridge. So any of you who are based in Enfield, you'll know exactly which McDonald's I mean. So I used to go there every day. I took sandwiches, which they let me eat as long as I kept them hidden. And I used to stay there all day while the children were at school using their internet. And I just got started. I knew I needed a company name. I needed a website. I needed a domain name. And once I had that, I could start. And yeah, 18 months later, I won Enfield Startup Business of the Year. But I suppose at least I got a story out of it.
I literally, my hair is standing. I've got goosebumps.
Oh.
And so I'm just trying to think from a time frame, because this is a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
And this is very, coming from a little bit, I don't know what they say, left field, whatever. So you started your business 8 years ago.
Yeah. So I
2012.
I started it as a limited company, and then I got made bankrupt. So I think I'd been going about 6-8 months. So and if you're bankrupt, you can't be a company director. So I hadn't really got going. So then I set up as a sole trader. So in effect, I started properly, I think, in January of 2014. I actually don't know the date. Isn't that funny?
Okay. But you were doing calls out of McDonald's in 2000.
I wasn't making phone calls out of McDonald's. It was far too noisy. But what I was doing was getting the sort of company infrastructure. So what was my logo? I was designing the logo. I couldn't afford to get a website made for me, so I did it myself. It was dreadful, but at least I had a website, because I knew I needed one. I knew all the things I needed to do to run a business. And it would have been easier if I'd had a bit of money. Of course it would, but I didn't. And that's just how it was. Can I tell you why I chose Tadpole Training as my company name? Okay. Now, depending on what Mac edits in and edits out, we had a little bit of a giggle earlier because he can't say my name. Now, I've got some sympathy because he has the same problem I do. People can't pronounce his name. So when I was thinking of setting up my company, and remember I was all by myself and I was homeless, and I literally thought, well, who do I know in Enfield, my hometown? I've lived here 17 years. Who do I know? And I realised the only people I knew were the neighbours on either side of me and a couple opposite. Didn't know anyone in the business community. And I thought, well, if I am to have a successful business, I've got a problem. Efere, my surname. No one can pronounce it. Correct, Mac?
How many times did I have to try? I think
you tried
9 or 10 times. Oh.
All right. So no one can pronounce it. No one can spell it. And no one can remember it. That's not really what you want when you're trying to launch a business. So I had to think, what will be memorable? And I remembered a company that when I was at Xerox, they were based in Cambridge. They were called Tadpole Technology. And I thought, well, if I can remember this from like 20 years ago, that's quite a good name. So I just changed it to Tadpole Training, got my own logo, and it's quite a nice metaphor for growth. And my philosophy going forward was, even if they can't remember my entire name and they say that tadpole woman, at least it's in their head. So I think any of you, if you're thinking of setting up a business, you've got to try and be memorable. And I realized that a lot of other sales trainers had really nice aspirational names, but they weren't very memorable, like Engage or Grow or Aspire, things like that, but not so memorable. But everyone remembers my tadpole, so I think it worked.
Well, you know, just listening to your journey, I'm dying to find out more, because there are so many people that I think can relate right now.
Yeah.
And you know, I have to add this little bit in, because just listening to your story now reminded me of somebody I met. I go out on occasion with an organization that help the homeless, and last night we went out into central London, and I met this amazing gentleman who, up until March, had been working in the hotel and catering industry, and got furloughed and decided he was going to go back to Holland, where he's from. Unfortunately, they cancelled his flights because of COVID. He was on the streets for a couple of nights, got his bag stolen, passport in it, and through no fault of his own, he was now homeless and identityless. And he's been on the streets ever since. This was in April, and this was last night where I was chatting to him. And there are so many people right now that are sitting there thinking and wondering, how do I get through tomorrow?
Yes.
Or even just today. And having listened to what you're saying, you know, and what you've said, just gives us so much hope that, you know what, there is a way. And hopefully some of the stuff that you go through with us today is going to resonate with people, and just give them an idea of, you know what, you can step forward. There are opportunities. You've just got to have that right mindset and believe. So, you know, one of the things that you put down in the points of the things that we can take away today was, you know, anyone can sell, and you don't have to be pushy or have the gift of the gab. Now, you know, really, like, take us through that.
Take you through that. Okay. There's a misconception that you've got to be like cheesy, foot in the door, yak, yak, yak. Don't give up. Yeah, we think of, I don't know, sorry if this is your industry, people, but we think of double glazing. We think of Indian call centres. We think of the used car salesman. All of them have got a shocking reputation. Some deserve, some not. So the cliche of a salesperson is a bloke. So sorry, gentlemen, who you don't down. Well, I mean, you count as a man. Oh, I'm going down the wrong hole here, but you don't. You're not pushy. You're fine. No, and I bet you won't edit that bit either. So there is a cliche, and for better or for worse, we believe that that's what you've got to be like to be successful in sales. But here's the problem with that: these guys, like most of us, have probably watched Wolf of Wall Street. Now, look, I had a great time at Xerox, but it was nothing like how they portrayed it in Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's like with every industry, there's the bad ones, there's the manipulators, there are the people who use dodgy techniques. I can remember way back before I worked at Xerox, I did a brief stint very badly in financial services before it was regulated. And my boss was awful. And he used to go around saying, you know, I'm going to teach you this close. This one's called the arm lock. This one's called, you know, the double wrestle. Or, you know, and, you know, he sort of celebrated that by tricking customers, you could get them to part with money.
Yeah.
And that's not what sales is about. Sales is helping someone find a solution that's going to benefit them. So, I don't know, if I've got toothache, well, what do I want? I want a dentist who can fix my toothache. And, you know, if you can solve someone's toothache, then you're selling, because you're exchanging what you do for what they've got. So, you know, you're sorting out their pain, that probably they'll give you money for it. I don't know. People only buy for two reasons. It's to move away from pain or to move towards pleasure.
Yeah.
And our job in sales is to advise them so they, excuse me, is to advise them so that they make the best decision for them. The term to sell originally meant to give. So you're giving something. Yeah, you're doing it in exchange for money. You're giving something. And it's about making sure you understand what the customer wants, which is why it's not going to help you if you are a yak, yak, yak push, salesy, talky type, because actually what you should be doing is, and this is a cliche, but it's a great one, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. Ask a really good question and listen to what the prospective customer has to say. And most customers really appreciate you listening. They don't mind asking questions if you ask them properly and you ask them respectfully. But if you suddenly start vomiting words over them, no one wants that.
Data dumping.
Looks like you've experienced a few of those.
I'm just, as you're explaining this and the simplicity, I'm thinking of, and I've worked with some very large organizations, and also a lot smaller ones. And all the different books on sales process and cycles and wording that you should use, and a lot of the methodology is there's method in the madness, but and I think trickery really is the simplest way of putting it, is people that think that they can get one over on somebody,
yes,
like tricking them into the sale. It's not a win-win situation. It's and that's where I have a challenge with certain sales individuals and people in organizations where it's about us winning and we took their money. It's not,
we crushed them, we beat them. Watch out for that sort of language, because if people are talking about words like crushing and dominating, winning, and I think this is why it can be a problem in the male sort of environment, because it can attract people who want to be a bit laddish, want to show off, show that they're macho. There can be a lot of egos in selling. I tell you what, they don't last long.
Yeah,
they really don't.
It does catch up with you eventually.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you also mentioned, to be successful in business, you need to just have that drive and focus.
Yeah.
But you also say money is nice but not essential.
Yeah.
So
look, if we go back to my example, so imagine me in McDonald's with no money and my laptop, using their Wi-Fi and bringing in my own sandwiches. In those early days, oh God, there was one day, I tried to drive the children to school. I ran out of petrol. I got home. The meter had run out of money. Then I think the school rang me because I needed to top up the thing that pays for the kids' school meals. And I had nothing. Because when you're bankrupt, your bank account gets closed. Okay. So no credit, no bank account. I'm on my own, remember, my husband's left me. My mum lives hundreds of miles away. I'm an only child. I have friends, but they lived in Surrey, which is where I'm from. So I was in Enfield. I couldn't afford the petrol to go and see my friends. And that was a really, really lonely place. But here's the thing. And honestly, if you're in a similar situation now, the one glorious thing that you can hold on to when you're at the bottom, because I was, there is nowhere else to go except up. There's nowhere else. I couldn't have got poorer. I couldn't have got more depressed. I couldn't have been more alone. I couldn't have been more broke. There was nothing that could be worse. So I had no fear, because if I fail, I'll just go back to wherever I was, which is at the bottom. So the only option was up. And to be fair as well, in those days, I was literally staring at 2 options. And one option was a life on benefits. And that wasn't an option. So I only had one other choice. And it was, I tried getting a job, that hadn't worked. I knew what to do to set up a business. Unfortunately, the sort of business I could set up, as I said earlier, it was in my head. It's not like I had to buy stock or I didn't need premises. And because I'd lost that very successful business that I ran with my husband, I also knew what to avoid. So I knew things like keep the structure very flat, don't spend money on stupid things. We had this ridiculous thing going on, and I kept complaining about it. But when I had the college, we were paying someone to set up a database. Now you can get databases for free now, can't you? Mac, I'm going to ask you a question. Guess how much we were paying this company to create a database?
Tens of thousands of pounds easily.
It was thousands. Yeah, go on, take a stab.
I don't know, 15,000? 30?
More.
50 grand?
We were paying a company £228,000 to create a database. And I'm going, I don't think we should. I don't think we should. And even though it was, you know, me and my husband, you know, the board of directors, they overruled me. And, you know, that was a ridiculous decision. And we spent money on things we shouldn't have spent money on. And also we put all our eggs in one basket. If we'd have had something going on as, if we split our risk, probably we'd still have been fine. So I knew all this stuff. So that's why I would say to you now, if COVID has wiped your life out, where there is this sort of hideous cleansing almost of jobs and of work and of opportunities, new things will spring up, and they will. It's like when you have a bushfire, it wipes out everything, but then green shoots start and different things grow. So I'm not making light of it because it's horrible. I mean, it took me a long time to get sort of back up and I was depressed, you know, it took me a long time to be cheerful, but my choice was benefits or not benefits, and it had to be not benefits.
Sure. I didn't, you know, I struggled to be at a loss for words.
Oh, don't be at a loss for words. I need questions.
No. I have lots of questions, but it's just realizing, you know, like you mentioned earlier, where, you know, that guy said, I almost missed a mortgage payment. And I'm hearing, you know, through social media, because we just swamped with all the stuff that comes at us. Yeah. All these people saying, hey, you know, I had a tough time. You know, and for me, the perfect example is Donald Trump, you know. I left that 1 million my dad gave me. You know, I was down to my last million. And I'm like,
poor chap.
Like, wow, tough times, man. And it's just perspective.
Yeah, of course it is. But I'm going to tell you something else as well. I genuinely believe I would have been further ahead financially right now if I hadn't had the children. But I don't regret having the children. They needed a mum who was there. Now, if I'd persevered and found a job, although to be fair, I don't think there were many jobs popping up for me, so you might share this experience. But what they've actually ended up with is they've had 8 years with their mum working from home. And they were 4 and 7 when all this kicked off. So they have had someone to take them to school every day, someone to pick them up from school every day. They've had someone there in the evenings. Now, all right, sometimes it's meant that I've not seen much of them, but I'm in the house with them. And my son said something really moving to me a few years ago when he started secondary school. He said, Mum, you know, a lot of my friends, they go home to an empty house, and, you know, it's not until their parents get home about 6:30. And oh, and look, if that's you, I promise I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. But when you're on your own and you have to play both roles, in effect, it's very easy to feel guilty. And yeah, I'd have liked to have more money, especially in the early days. But now I'm sort of out the other side. I'm actually extremely pleased I made the choice I did, which was to spend the time with those 2 amazing young people who, bless them, seem to be reasonably well balanced going forward. So yeah, life is about choices. And I think too often we're encouraged just to chase the money. And there are more important things. There are much more important things.
Sure. So your next point, and you know, you wrapped that up so beautifully with how important it is to just appreciate,
yeah,
you know, sometimes where you're at. And you know, it's very easy when you're going through a tough time to be looking at everybody else's life and going, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
and one of the, the epiphanies I've had, and especially during lockdown, is if if I can just be happy where I'm at, everything else is just a bonus, and it's a beautiful place to then come from. And we forget about the amazing things that happen around us. So the blessings we do have, when there's scarcity in whether it be finance or something else.
And I don't think social media helps either, because everyone puts the best version of themselves up on social media. And even when they share things that have gone wrong, it's almost like competitive. I'm worse than anybody else. I've had it harder than anyone else. So I've shared my story with you because you've asked. But for the first 3 years, no way I was going to tell anyone what happened to me. I mean, what sort of sales training am I if I'm broke? What does that say about my skills level? This is what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
My head wasn't acknowledging that actually, for whatever reason, I'd had a bit of a run of bad luck, which is exactly what had happened, and it can happen to anyone. I personally felt like a failure. And again, it's only when you're out the other side that you realise, with perspective, that perhaps you weren't responsible for everything that happened. So again, I would encourage you, if at the moment you're feeling like it's your fault or you did something that caused this thing to happen, no, it might be shit, but it's probably not your fault at all. So please cut yourself some slack, because if you're feeling down, what you don't need to do is let that little voice in your head have even more of a go at you.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more.
Mm.
Sure. So your next point was, I can teach people a simple trial close in a session.
Yeah.
Now, what is a session? Like, is that like a 5-minute session, or like a
Yeah, we can do it now. Well, it's less than that. It's dead simple. Right. So people get all worried about closing. Oh, that's the scary bit. What if the customer says no? All right. So I'm going to teach you a trial close, because whether you're experienced at sales, in which case you're probably using this, or whether you're a newbie, or whether you've just had a chat with a customer and you're thinking, I wonder if I should close yet, this is when to use a trial close. Because especially if you're inexperienced, it can be quite hard to read what we call buying signals. So in other words, hints that the customer is ready to buy. So I'm going to teach you a trial close. So a buying signal is when a client or a potential client is kind of showing you hints that they might be interested in actually buying your thing. So I'm going to teach you a trial close, because anyone can use it. And think of it like this. It's a bit like dipping your toe in the swimming pool. You're testing the water to see if they're ready to buy before you do a proper close. So Mac, I've been talking to you about buying my widgets, and I think you look interested. So I will now trial close you. So Mac, what do you think?
Sounds interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Tell me more.
Perfect. Now, that was a trial close. I'm dipping my toe in the water. I'm testing the water to see where Mac is in the cycle. So only 3 things can happen if you do a trial close. So you can go, how does that feel? How does that sound? Or how does that look? So those of you who know what I did there, I'm appealing to kinesthetic, visual, and auditory people. So there's only 3 versions. How does that feel? How does that look? How does that sound? And as a result, everyone in the world will do one of 3 things. They'll either go, yeah, it looks good, in which case, sell it to them, get the money, do whatever you need to do. They will go, no, I don't like it, or no, it's not for me. Now, we're in Britain, so it's very unlikely we'll do that, because we're so passive aggressive, it's really frustrating. So you don't get a Brit saying no. Any Americans who are watching, you're probably looking at us going, well, why not? Just say no. I wish more people would just say no, because then you know what to do with it.
Absolutely.
So we've got say yes, sell it, say no, smile and walk away. And then we've got what Mac did, which is, well, yeah, it sounds all right, but tell me more. And that's where most people fall. So with those people, you need to have a little bit more of a conversation, tell them a bit more about your widgets or whatever it is, and then you can drop in another trial close. So Mac, I hope I've answered your questions. How does that sound now?
I think you've cleared up a few things, because I was a bit confused on what you were saying earlier.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? Would you like to go ahead?
What does that look like?
Okay, and then we talk about the nitty gritty. So he's more positive than he was. So I can now address those questions. And at the end of that, please say yes this time, otherwise it could be tedious for the listeners. So Mac, now we've cleared up all those other details that you were worried about. How do you feel about it now?
It seems like a no-brainer.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go ahead and do the paperwork. Is that all right?
Sounds good to me. What do we have to do?
Cool. And then we'll do whatever we have to do. So a trial close is your way of testing the water before you do a real close. And all you've got to do is, how does that feel? How does that sound? How does that look? Whatever you think the customer will go with the best. If they're positive, you close them. If they're negative, you smile and say goodbye. And if they're not sure, have a further conversation, do another trial close. Sorted. I hope that was less than 5 minutes.
That, you know what, having been in sales for over 20 years and having been on so many sales courses, it's amazing how many people miss those three little things, and the fact that there are three different types of people that you're selling to, and most people will use what's comfortable to them.
Yes.
And therefore they'll cut out 2/3 of their audience.
Yep. Yep.
And you could literally increase your sales closure rate massively just by including them in the way you speak in your language.
Yeah.
So
something very important in sales is if you can possibly mirror people. So if I was in a real conversation with Matt now, I just observed that he was using his hands to express something. So if I was sitting across the table from him, you remember the old days, how we used to do that? Yeah, he's doing that. I'd probably, if I was on the same wavelength, I might do that. Change position for me. Yeah, okay, so now he's done that, so I'll copy him. That's called mirroring. So you can mirror body language, but you can also mirror the way people speak. So that's where the visual, auditory and kinesthetic thing comes in. But it could be simpler stuff too. If Mac was talking really fast, I'd actually increase my pace. So I was talking more like him. If he was very slow and considered, I would change my voice also. So there's lots of ways that you can encourage people to feel comfortable with you. It's not being tricksy, it's trying to be on the same wavelength as them, because if they like you, they're more likely to buy from you.
Okay, so I mean that was really useful, because especially for those people who just don't know, in fact, let me correct that. I think for those people who have got, even those ones with ample training, but because of their current situation can't see clearly right now, they're in overwhelm.
Yeah.
Just getting back to the basics, just those little bits can literally get your head above water. So, you know, I think you've covered something so simple, but that people can go and put into action today. And you know what, that and this is not only for those people going out and getting starting their own business and trying to close. This is for those interviews as well. When you're sitting across the boardroom table from somebody, and let's cut through the, hey, we'll get back to you, all the rest of it. Ask those questions, close them, so that you can move on to the next thing.
I can't help myself in interviews. I can't help it. I mean, I've always done that. So a tip you can use, don't just close without explaining what you're doing. So Mac, I've really enjoyed this interview, and I just want to let you know, if you offer me the job, I would absolutely accept. So I would like to know, first of all, you probably can't answer this, but have I got the job? They'll say no, because they can't, because they've probably got other people. You might be lucky, you never know. So then the next question I would ask is, well, I'm serious about this job. Is there anything that I haven't covered, or anything you're concerned about, which would prevent you from offering me the job? Because I'd really like the chance to address it. And what
nuggets?
Because then if they say, well, I'm a bit worried because, I don't know, you seem to jump jobs every 6 months. Well, if you've jumped jobs every 6 months, you probably know that that's a weakness of yours. So if you've been smart, you've prepared an answer. So it could be, yeah, because of where my life was, I wasn't that focused. But I've got to the stage now where, just for instance, I want to get a mortgage, I want to settle down, and I need to have a steady job. So if you employ me, I want to be with you in 10 years' time, for instance. So that's closing, that's sales.
Love it. Again, another golden nugget, which, use it or lose it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Actually, no, but that's a good point, though. I mean, we can sometimes get a bit scared, can't we? And that voice in our heads goes, "Oh, don't ask that because they might say no." Well, do you know what? They might say yes. Try. If you don't feel brave enough to do it exactly like I said it, try doing half of it, or just do the preparation and what you think your weaknesses are beforehand. As long as you're improving, just try and be a bit better each time. Personally, I wouldn't faff around. If I wanted a job, I'd do whatever I could in the interview to get it. But challenge yourself, because I tell you what, even if it doesn't work out, you'll feel pleased that you've tried. And if you're not feeling great at the moment, anything that helps you feel better about yourself is worth doing. So push yourself as much as you can without giving yourself undue stress, and just try, just see. Be
You know what? I'm actually going to set a bit of a challenge over here for anybody who's watching to go away and try this, whether it be in your interview or in your sales role, or whether it be just in your career or with another staff member where you're trying to get a project over the line. Go try the trial close, go and try these techniques, and then put in the comments what the outcome was, because if the outcome is horrible, maybe we can get back to you, give you some further information. But we'd love to hear how that worked for you.
And if it didn't work, I will personally get in touch and try and advise you what to do next, because I taught interview skills for 17 years.
And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of all these things and these life challenges people are going through right now, and the trial close for negotiating things like your bills. You're on the phone and you're phoning your broadband provider and going, well, hey, this is the current situation. How what are the options that we have? And just test them, and then come back and tell you what the options are. And you'll be surprised, because there's a lot of things that they can do for you right now that they're not telling people actively, because they don't want everybody to jump on the bandwagon.
Exactly, yeah.
Don't ask.
Well, I must admit, at the beginning of lockdown, I went and negotiated all my bills with the view that if I couldn't get them dropped, I was no worse off. And I can't remember what it was. I think I owed someone about £150. I was paying it off at 50 quid a month, and I just said, can I pay it £10 a month instead? And they went, yeah. It's not going to cost me any extra. So it's worth trying. It's just worth trying.
Absolutely.
And that's a good sales philosophy too. Just try.
Yeah, you've got nothing to lose. And everything to learn. So the value of just having conversations. Talk to me about that.
Right. So earlier you mentioned that in a previous conversation I'd said that during lockdown I'd had 2 of my best months ever, and I attribute this to the fact that at the beginning of lockdown I noticed that people have more time. They're furloughed, their business has evaporated, everything's a bit weird, they're stuck at home, they're not commuting, so people have more time. So I decided to walk my talk. So one of the things I teach is, have conversations with people. Don't just ring them up when you want to flog them something, because soon they'll realize that only ring them up when you want to flog something, and they'll stop picking up the phone. So one of my things is just chat with people. So at the beginning of lockdown, I just use WhatsApp. You can do this too. So, cheap, free. I just message people, do you fancy a catch up? And probably about 10% of people responded with, yeah, let's. So those people, I just had a chat with them. And we talked about lockdown, and we talked about the weather, and we talked about how everyone's got into gardening, and we talked about, are you okay, and have you had COVID? And no, I've got a cough, so I think I have got COVID, but I might not have COVID. And how are you coping homeschooling? You know, all the stuff that was going on. And I did it without agenda, without being strategic, without intending to flog anybody anything. And a couple of people, so we're in mid-flow, gardening, coughing, weather, homeschooling, a couple of people literally just randomly said, right, so Janet, about your coaching program. Because I wasn't in the zone, because I'm just having a chat, it was like a comedy reaction. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, of course. And I had to get my head into what I was doing. And I think that's why I did really well over lockdown. I mean, so I'm a sales trainer and a coach. And if you're a business coach, blimey, you should be earning your stripes at a time like this, shouldn't you? I mean, most people can do well in business when times are good. When times are tough, that's when you need a business coach who knows what they're doing. And again, going back to my story, Mac, because I'd been through the worst, when COVID hit, it took me about a day to compute it and work out what the implications were. And I knew what to expect because I'd experienced the bottom, remember, the bottom. So I think my value to businesses was that very quickly I understood what to do to make sure, A, my business didn't fold, but also I knew exactly what to do for other businesses. And so I attribute the fact that I've had a good lockdown to that experience. So again, if you're in the shit right now at the bottom thinking it's awful, it will serve you going forward. What you have learned will serve you because you'll learn from it and you'll be better for it. And perhaps that's knowledge that you can use to help other people. I can't remember what the question was. I went into a bit of a roll then.
No, but it is phenomenal how your experiences, even though you think they may not be relevant because of past experiences, and because of the time frame and everything else, you've gone through the journey that you've gone through, that has equipped you with knowledge that is there ready to be drawn on. And it's amazing how that does come out, and you think, hold on, I never thought I'd use that skill again, or I never thought that I'd have to solve that problem again. So each one of us are uniquely programmed to be able to solve different problems. So
well, let me give you a really good example. So you'll recognize this. If you've got no money, you suddenly don't have buying choices, do you? You can't buy stuff. And one of the problems I see, particularly with new businesses, is they set up and they've got a chunk of money. And then what happens? Everyone starts pitching to them. You need this marketing thing and that marketing thing and this system and that software and this website. And you don't need a £300 website. You need a £2,000 website. And people are just coming at you with stuff. And you don't know which bits of those stuff matter. Well, I do. You need a name. You need a domain name. You need a website. And then you can start. That's what you need. And a logo if you're feeling fancy. That's it. And you can start with that. And if you can't afford that, you could start selling stuff on eBay. I mean, I subsidized what I was earning for months on eBay because I just sold stuff. And if it weren't for eBay, some months I probably wouldn't have eaten. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm really going poor me, because that's not what this is about. What I'm saying is I recognize and understand if you're feeling where I am. I'll tell you something else happened to me. There was a point, I can't remember, 5 years ago, maybe, not quite sure. I had to go to a food bank for Christmas.
Sure.
Now, that was humiliating. All right. And they were lovely. That made it worse. They were lovely. They were really kind. But if help is available, ask for it, because there are kind people out there. So look, separately, if any of you want to speak to me outside this interview, please do, because I promise you I've been there. And it's really moving me at the moment what we're hearing about this whole debate about the poorest children not having school dinners during half terms. That really moves me, because there's something so fundamental about food, isn't there? Absolutely. Especially going into winter. So you know what you were telling me about going out and helping homeless people, that guy who lost everything, some of us are so close. We're literally on that precipice. We could fall that way or we could fall that way. It could happen to anyone. Really could.
Absolutely. So, on that note, I just want to remind people, just be kind, because you just don't know what's happening to people, even if they're giving you a hard time and they're being horrible. Just be kind, because you don't know what's happening on the other side of the lens.
You've no idea what pressure they're under. Yeah.
So your next one, and I'm conscious we've got a few minutes left here,
Okay.
is, if you're stuck, get yourself a structure. Now, I'm keen to hear more about this, because it resonates with me how structure has just been a lifesaver.
Well, so when I was at Xerox, it took them. So I was a brand new salesperson with a target and a car. That's a good bit about it. But an immense amount of pressure, because in my mind, I'm new, I'm inexperienced. They're going to realise they're going to fire me. I was doing target. Of course, they weren't going to fire me, but I didn't know that. I was young. They're going to fire me. Pressure, pressure, pressure. And it took them 13 weeks to put me on sales training. And what I learned on sales training was a structure. The relief, okay, just the relief. Okay, I wasn't great at it yet because I'd only just learned it, but I had something to practice. So one of the things I teach in my training is a structure, because once you've got a structure, you know what to do. You know what to say in which place, what questions to ask. So the structure will teach you what you need to do at what moment, and it takes a lot of pressure off, because if you're sitting there in a call with someone and you don't know what to do next, it's really horrible. So I'm a big fan of learning a really simple structure, so you know what to do at what place and how different things lead into other things. I don't mean follow it slavishly. I don't like scripts. So you sometimes hear people, they're clearly following a script. That doesn't leave room for humanity to shine through. I do like a structure, like a skeleton. You can flesh it out how you want to show your personality.
Just knowing what the next steps are, and that structure is really, really, really key, because if somebody says, yeah, okay, I'd like to go ahead, and you're sitting there going, ooh, what does that look like?
What question do I ask next?
and I've been there where I remember starting my business. I was so excited about starting and getting out there and talking to people. I hadn't thought about, like, what happens if they go ahead. I was just like, let's ask the questions. And then on our first day, we got somebody and they went, okay, let's go ahead. And I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that today. I thought I'd deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just go, and if you in your head know what that next step looks like, it's amazing that, because the expectation is somebody's going to ask me to go ahead, and they're going to need to pay, and this is how they're going to need to do it. You have that next step in your mind. Your expectation is that a close is possible, but if you don't, when it comes, you could lose the sale. Two, if you're not expecting anybody to do business with you, then guess what? You're going to get what you expect.
You certainly are.
So if anything, that's one of the things I wish I prepped right in the beginning.
Oh gosh, me too. I'm just going to say something actually on closing. People get really worried that their closing rates aren't high enough. Look, if someone tells you they close every deal they try and get, there's two things going on. One, they're either lying, because no one ever closes everything, or two, they're not charging enough. If I was selling Rolls Royces for £100 a pop, I bet I'd have 100% closing rate, although people might correctly say they're probably dodgy. But if you're selling something of value, the reason people employ salespeople is to make a difference. Kellogg's don't really employ salespeople because Kellogg's have so much advertising. We go out and buy their cornflakes. But I'm going to refer you back to Xerox now. Xerox is a sales-led organization, because you tend to buy £500,000 worth of kit, and some of them are more expensive than that, without knowing what's involved. So the salesperson there is like an advisor or an educator or even a consultant. So it might help you to think of yourself more as a consultant or an expert advisor than a salesperson, because actually what you're doing, remember, is helping people make informed decisions to buy something that will benefit them. And if your thing benefits them, you need to advise them on how it benefits them. So I hope that's helped a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, you have a little giveaway that you've mentioned.
I do have a little giveaway that I've mentioned. So, as Mac mentioned in my introduction, I am a #1 best-selling Amazon author. I've never quite worked out what order you meant to say all those words, but anyway, I collaborated with some people at the beginning of the year. I can show you. Okay, so I collaborated on this book. It's called Sales Genius 2. And there's a whole load of us people who apparently know what we're talking about, which is always a good thing. So the first 5 people who put in the chat, or whatever format it is that they comment on Mac, the first 5 people via Mac who let me know that they're interested in that, I will send them a free copy of that.
That is awesome. And because it's a collaboration, there's a whole ton of value in there.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And we've all written about a different subject. So there's people who are experts in certain areas and they've written about their topic. So what I wrote about was how to spot buying signals, because that was something that just dumbfounded me for years. I couldn't work it out. And then suddenly one day it's like, oh, that's what it is. So that's what I've written about.
Oh, another golden nugget that you can go and get access to. First 5 people.
First 5 people, yeah.
Awesome stuff. That is exciting stuff. So, Janet, I just want to thank you so much for the value that you've added today. Such simple little things. Now, I know a lot of people are sitting there going, okay, great. I can go and apply those things, take them away today and go and do them immediately. But you probably have a few people that are watching that are sitting there going, okay, well, that's great, but I'd like to know more. I'd like to get into it a bit deeper, and maybe want to reach out to you to find out more about the sales training or the other programs that you run.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Tell us, how do people contact you? What's the best way to reach out?
Best way is probably LinkedIn. Or if you would please put my Calendly link up, Mac. If you just want to have a chat with me about your situation, perhaps you've got particular sales issues that you're struggling with, you're very welcome. I do it used to be a 2-day course, but now we're in lockdown. I've changed it to a 6-week part-time course. Very simple. It's called How to Sell. I don't do fancy. I don't do high level. I teach ordinary people the basics, because when I was at Xerox, I realized the people who got the basics right earn the most money. So if you want to sell in a way that's authentic, that's not pushy, that's not yucky, won't make you feel sick once you've done it, but will literally help you either transform your business or perhaps your job role, then please, get in touch. I run it regularly. I've got cracking feedback on it, and it's designed just for you. If you need to go a bit deeper, I do sales coaching as well, but let's initially just book an appointment. We'll have a chat. And particularly if you've got a sales issue, very happy to just try and sort it out for you. That's what I love doing.
Awesome stuff. Janet, I want to thank you again so much. Some great value, and just a beautiful story of grit and perseverance.
It's been my pleasure. You're ever such a good interviewer.
I'm just looking forward to hearing the stories of all those people's lives that you've touched in the past, but also that will be touched through this video and this interview. And please throw your support, show your what your thoughts are, share those in the comments, ask questions, or just show some love and put a thumbs up and
I'll chuck in an extra book for the best question in the chat.
Oh, wow. Okay. Some more value there for you guys. Excellent stuff. Janet, thank you so much. I'm wishing you an amazing day. Incredible what's left of 2020. And for those of you who reach out to Janet, I have no doubt you're going to have an incredible 2021. So much appreciated. And I wish you a great day further.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. This afternoon, I'm so excited to be interviewing Janet Efere. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Absolutely not. Efere.
Efere. I did it again because you corrected me the other day. So, Efere. Efere.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that better? Efere.
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 Just go with it.
How bad am I?
Janet Efere.
Efere.
Yeah.
Efere. Okay. I'm going to do that whole intro again.
I think you should keep it in because I'll tell you why I chose the company name I've got. But anyway.
Okay. So maybe, okay. Yeah. So I'll do some editing. I'll do some...
Brilliant.
Okay. Love it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of a story where somebody did that to me in the middle of an interview, but it was like, I was sitting there thinking, am I not in the interview today? It was like sounded like somebody else. I was like, what the hell? Okay, breathe.
Do you do outtakes?
Hey, yeah, my
outtakes. You should.
Yeah, I think I should do a whole series of just those. Actually, there shouldn't be too many. Breathe.
Okay, let me help you phonetically. Air, like the stuff around us.
Air.
F, like the letter.
Yeah.
A, like the note. Efere.
Efere.
Yeah, but without the emphasis on the ray.
Efere.
Yeah. Look, honestly, it's fine.
Efere. Efere.
Efere. Yeah, that was good.
Okay, I'll get there. Try saying Michael.
No, thank you. Why have I got to say that?
That's my name.
Is it really? Michael.
Michael, yeah.
Michael. Okay.
Yeah, that's why, hence Mac. Because one of my friends just went, screw this, man. I'm calling you Mac.
And I thought it was your surname you were going to tell me was difficult.